cut and paste. Mm-hmm.
Everyone. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. I am so excited to be here with two of my favorite people on this planet. And I have to be careful with this intro because as I start to have a conversation or talk about them, my eyes tear up and I have some crazy feeling in my heart and, and my voice will start cracking. But I am here, you guys, today with Miss Mary and Eric. And these are, like I said, some of my favorite people, but also some of the most transformative geniuses, inspiring, inspirational, and world changers that I have ever met in my entire life. They have done more for our company, our team, myself, my relationship, my family, than I could ever ask for. And so many of our clients and strategic partners that have had the pleasure and the blessing to be able to spend time with them. So I am so excited you guys are here. We've got some great content to cover today, being that we're in a really interesting time. But before we get started, you guys do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about Driven Leadership and Bold and Forge and so forth, a little bit about what you guys do.
Well, you're gonna get two different stories from Eric and I. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. No, I'll start.
Yeah, you start.
I'll start. Okay. This is Eric in my life. So I am Mary Belden-McGrath, one of the co-founders of Driven Leadership. Driven Leadership, our whole focus is on leadership, whether it's within management, individuals, companies. We work with athletic teams, but our whole focus is on how do we wake people up? How do we give them skill sets to play bigger in life? So you're looking at empathy, emotional intelligence, confidence, being better human beings that make better communities, families, companies, super, super passionate. And I just want to say thank you for letting this be here.
You should also weight loss to it.
Yeah, you're the ever shrinking Jen.
No.
You look amazing.
Incredible.
Eric, what would you add to it?
Yeah, it's always interesting when we're on one of these type of things together is because when we got in this business, Mary got in because we had been trained and worked with a skill set on how to help people radically shift into being higher performers, whether it's in their job, in their life, or what's going on. And not from coaching, from an actual training to be able to get into a format and change some of the key behaviors that make them more productive, more accomplishing, crushing the things in their life that they want to do. And so we knew how to build those type of trainings, and we have, and that's what you were talking about with Bold and Forge and these trainings that help people just push their limits and crush it. And in my background, I'd owned businesses and had run businesses and run teams, and I love watching teams perform. I love watching the return. And I don't mean the money necessarily, but that's absolutely there, right? The return of a business, the return of a team in producing higher level results. So when we got together, that's what Driven became. Driven became, and leadership is this big word that I think confuses more people than helps them, but it gets into how we show up to produce results and the results that we're after. And so our company in whole, we do have these products that help people just go crush it in life and break through the things that hold them back. And I'd even put those more in the personal development category. It's like really helping people evolve, but we frame it in how do we help you evolve and be able to apply it to business, because the business side produces the return that kind of makes it, instead of I hope this works, to be an investment that really produces fruit and outcomes for business. So I guess that's the only thing I'd add on there.
That was really good.
That was really good.
Thanks.
I do agree. So I'll just start by telling you kind of my story as it relates to how Bold changed our entire trajectory. When Clay first went to Bold and came back and he was pitching it and pitching it. And I was like, okay, sounds like a cult, a little crazy. And I read every book you could imagine. I've been through capacity training. I've been through this training. I've been through every training you could imagine. And I honestly was a little arrogant and stubborn. And I put it off. And I put it off.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
It was a lot. It was a lot. I like kind of asshole-ish, like my lack of a better term. But so I put it off for a year, and then finally I was like, you know what? Clay kept being persistent, and I was like, I'm going to send my husband, shoot out the next guinea pig. And I watched the man come back, a changed man, and I went right after it. And I can't put into words what it did to me personally. And all I could think is I want every single leader on my team to go through the same experience, because I felt like when I came home, now I can communicate with Clay on a different level. I can communicate with my husband on a different level. We're seeing, it's like waking up and having a complete blind spot, and you're sitting looking in a kaleidoscope, not realizing the rest of this view is out there. Your perception is so narrow before you go to Bold. No matter how much experience, and I'm a world traveler, I have plenty of experience. I mean, I feel like I should have had a larger kaleidoscope, but after Bold, I realized it didn't. What happened from there, oddly enough, is we started sending our leaders one at a time, HR, CFO, our chief of staff, our VPs, our directors, and so forth. Long story short, during that same period of time, what I could not have predicted was that AI would have launched and completely changed the landscape of everything we've ever done, ever considered, ever anything. And it was happening while, everyone was going through this process. And it caused, as everybody started coming out of Bold, as our leaders started being able to communicate and have more authentic conversations and have more care and compassion and show up stronger to every single meeting and process things faster and not be afraid to give feedback, to take feedback, and so forth. It put us in a position where, as a company, we literally, over the last 6 months, challenged every process, every person, every technology, every strategy, everything across every single department. And we basically built a new company within our legacy company that operates with 100% different standard operating procedures. We're 300 deep, so this is not easy.
Yeah.
300 deep, 100% different SOPs, all new employees that know how to code differently, know different languages, know different skills. They're all AI background. They're a totally different group. And are operating right now in a 7-month period, operating our legacy business and a brand new business within it at the same time. Under no circumstances could that have ever happened, because I've never had this large of a lift. We've never taken on that much, that rapidly, that widespread across all of the divisions within our company ever at the same time. And it has been the most successful venture, not just for us, but for our clients, to have a completely different model of marketing and website building, leveraging AI that we could have never done had we not been through Bold. And it's I can't thank you enough. Like, our leaders are amazing. And I find myself, anytime I'm on a meeting and we have new leaders that are in and they haven't been through Bold, I want to throw out, I need you to approach this. This is a bucket challenge. I'm looking for a solution. I'm not like, shit, all 3 of them are in here that have been through it, and I have to come up with some new version. But I'm curious. I feel like our next phase is how do we transfer what we've been able to go through, where we can look at ourselves from the inside out and we can rip apart everything we've done, everywhere we've been, and everything we've ever known. We've got to now transfer that to a whole population of home service companies who've been doing the same thing the same way, or going to the same events with the same presentations. And they're in this old model and scared to death of, what do you mean I need to change everything and modify the way that I function from the grass down? Like, what are those steps that you go through?
Well,
What do you recommend?
well, so I want to take this one if that's good.
Please.
You know, it's interesting listening to you talk, because not every company goes through what you went through. That's kind of like trial by fire while you're going through. And when you say, so just for those that don't know, we have a class. It's over 3 days. It's 48 hours over 3 days. We call it 2.5 days.
It's not a
yeah, class is the wrong word for it. It's an experience. It really is. And it's called Bold Advanced Leadership. And it is, it's specific. It is processes that you go in. You're not, specifically, we don't have people know the process before they're going in, because we want them to respond in the moment. And you're going to get to see how we respond under challenge, under stress, under pressure. And then as people see that, they process after process, they're getting feedback. So they're getting feedback from facilitators. They're getting feedback from the people that are in the class as well, from their perspective, and obviously themselves. And they really get to see their strengths and their weaknesses. And they start to come into these walls. And the thing is, leadership is not, man, I wish it was easy to practice leadership. It's not, because leadership really counts in the moments you're talking about, like what you're going through with your company. And you know, I appreciate that you give us some type of credit, but I want to say everybody that we've had from your company, man, you hire well. You've got good people. So when you take somebody and you're already hiring well, and you're putting strong leaders in there, and they have a culture that's supporting them, and all cultures have nuance to it, but they have a culture that's behind them and supporting them and helping them grow, develop, be different. Failing is okay sometimes. It's like, we're going to figure this out together. You talk about the bucket challenge. That's a process where you really got to think differently to get through it. And so what you're talking about there is, we need to think differently here. And you've got a team that can respond to that. So let's acknowledge you're starting with something that's above average. Okay. You're starting with people that can build something. They get your culture, that are part of it, all those type of things. But we put them through this process of Bold. And the goal of Bold is not, this is how you lead. The goal of Bold is for you to identify, what is it that holds you back from higher performance? You know, we all feel it. We're going through life and we're like, man, I know there's another level. And then some people, and this is why I always say Bold isn't for everyone, is because some people are going, I want to identify it and I want to work on it and I want to get better. And there's a whole lot of people that are like, I want to live in it. I want to stay here and I don't want to change anything. And so going back to your question, the first thing is and we deal with this, we're in the trades and we work with different service companies. We work with all types of companies, but for some reason, service is really connected, because we're not really normal, like training. It's like, you know, like you said, it's more of, let's get in and let's figure this out. And you got to apply and you got to work on it. You get to see the things. And so what happens when we get into companies is, on our side, we have to evaluate, because we get into some companies and the leaders are so stuck. They are so stagnant. And yeah, us from the outside, you going in and working with the marketing and doing all the things that you're doing, you're like, hey, we can't keep doing the same thing that's not working. And it's clearly not working. We got to shift. And some of that may be their brands, their look, their feel, how we talk about it. Like, and I've seen the magic you guys do. You go in there and like, they're going, we've never even seen our company this way before, but it requires a different mindset. Well, teaching leadership and management is very similar. You know, you go in and the way we've been doing it is getting, and often we'd say it's getting good enough results, which is kind of dangerous. You know, we're making money, but we're not making money. We're getting through the day, but we're not really creatively coming up with new ideas and concepts. And the conversations are stressful and the owners are going home and they're like, oh my God. And they're thinking about this one or two people that are driving them crazy every day. And it's, you know, the stress and all the things that go on. And our hope and goal with what we do and every product that we offer, Bold is one of them, but with all the things that we go through, our goal is that those owners, yes, you know, I'd love to say it's a magic wand and you go, woof, and now everything's working. That's not how it works. But the first thing we're doing is we're evaluating, are you somebody that wants to change? And when I say wants to change can be painful. Change requires self-evaluation. Change requires, if there's somebody going, my team is broken, I'm awesome, we're not for you. We're not, right? It starts at the top. And when the top says, hey, I need to do something different, I don't know how, put me in, coach. Like we have products that crush that. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, I think, at least in the companies we talk to, that's more rare than common. Most of them want to prove why their way works and keep it where it is instead of looking for new ways. And the crazy thing is about what we do is we really aren't getting into this is how you do it different. What we're doing is unlocking the collaborative aspects, how we handle conflict, how we work through things, our emotional intelligence under stress and pressure, so that as you're working through it, you're getting better ideas from your team. The team is working better together. You're coming in more confident, more clear. And then you go, okay, then you got the confident leaders that have the overabundant ego. And I jokingly say that might fit you at the beginning where you're talking about that, like, and they come in that side. But there's a level of being more, I don't know if humble is always the right word, but it's more about being aware and open. And as you said, to kind of open the door to seeing different perspectives and being open to them and bringing those in and getting, I always look at teams and it's the quiet ones that are the deep processors, and they usually have the best ideas. But how are we harvesting those and how are we pulling them out? So long story short, you're asking for what do? You want to make a change. The first thing you do, we need somebody that wants to change. So you can't make somebody change that doesn't want to. So they have to want to make a difference, make a change. If that's in place, now it's about expanding the concept of what does it look like in here. We got to raise the lid of expectation. So if my expectation of a team is they do what I say, then we are stuck with a low-level team and a low-level manager and leader. That's an autocratic style of leadership. They come in, they tell people what to do, they don't do what they want them to do, they get frustrated with what's going on, and then they go, my team sucks. And the reality is it's my approach to leadership and how I'm working with them to unlock them is poor. So now we're working on you as a leader and how you're approaching things and what's going on. And the third step is we start looking and we start connecting the culture, which I know we wanted to talk about on here, which is when you've got strong leadership, how do you shift the culture and the people that are all there and really move it into this performance mindset? And there's a lot of steps there, but because culture is a complex thing. But the very first thing is we've got to harvest the ideas. It's got to be a psychologically safe environment. That's a term. We can talk about that, but it's the environment that I feel safe to voice my ideas. And they're not going to be, not that all my ideas are accepted. And I'd say, take somebody like you, Jen, this strong leader, this badass that's in there. And let's say I'm a new employee that's coming in and I disagree with what you're saying. Is the culture so strong that I feel safe enough to go, hey, I don't know if I agree with you. Can we talk about that? And we can have a healthy conversation. If we're in that space, oh my gosh, there's so much we can do. But I can tell you, it's super rare.
I want to add to, so a lot of times within change is scary. And if people feel out of control, they get stuck in, there's only a certain way to do it, right? Go back to the bucket challenge. There's only one way to do it. And there's a lot of distractions. When we get out of the mindset that change could actually be good, and we get out of fear and into what can we do, we can think different thoughts. So when you're working with contractors, when you're working with owners, and identifying first, what's your vision? Like, here's where we're going. And if they get stuck in, well, I don't know how we're going to do this, and addressing what's possible instead of what's not, you can move. That's what your team did. In the midst of all the craziness, all the things that were happening, what Bold does is it gets you in a mindset that's okay to fail forward. And we say fail forward, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to take a risk. What's the worst thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen? Changing our mindset with that, running to the roar is that fear. And when we actually look at adversity as an opportunity for growth, it helps everyone. But if people are stuck, to what Eric was saying, if they get stuck and they don't want to change, then guess what? Nothing changes if nothing changes.
So let me set this stage for this. What if, and anybody can disagree, what if 5 years from now, the average heating and air conditioning or plumbing company has 30 bots working for them, robots. And your training is you press a button like my Tesla right now that says upload. And it now knows how to perform that function, install that system, repair that system, diagnose that system, whatever it is. What if those bots are driven to the job in an autonomous vehicle and you have one foreman overseeing the project with those bots, and a consumer can talk to a device just like my little Google? I gotta be quieter, she'll start talking to me. A little device over there, and I have an Alexa over there, right? What if I'm talking, a consumer is doing dishes and saying, hey, whatever they name her, Mary. Hey, Mary, can you do me a favor? I need to hire an air conditioning company. Can you tell me the best AC company that can install preferably heat pump system? I want to make sure they're certified. I want to make sure they have financing. I want to make sure that I can book here with you. And I want to make sure they have the best reviews in there. And Mary does the search, does the full analysis via AI, not via Google search, via AI search, finds all of the information. Mary and their little bot have a conversation back and forth. And while I'm drying the last dish, I say, great, sounds good. Can you see if they have time on Friday? I have a lunch break. I've got good time at Friday at noon. Awesome. Can you book it for me? So what happens if 60% of the total consumers don't go to Google anymore? No more ads. They don't have to get ads on AI. They don't have to go anywhere. They can just have a conversation in their home because they have a smart home with a device that will do all the research for them and bots. So I'm putting this out there because that's not far off. And your competitors, the person answering the phone is not a human. It's a bot that if you call sounds happier than the majority of the people in your office. The phone calls are being booked by bots. The leads are being booked by bots, and even the installations are being booked by bots. And I'm not trying to be a jerk and say that everybody's going to be out of a job. I'm saying that that's a real possibility. So now take the average human who is challenging, do I want to change, and still dealing with where they should have changed from 4 and 5 years ago that they still haven't caught up with. And the reality that with AI and with technology, we're about to truncate time into something they have never seen in the history of their life as far as the requirement to change and adopt right now to prepare for a future that is not far away. Now,
how do you help?
How are you with them when we're having these conversations?
It's while you're talking, I was thinking about there's a story, and I'll probably butcher some of the story, but it's about when refrigerators first came out. Have you heard that one? And it's okay. So it used to be everybody had an ice box, right? You had an ice box in your house, and it had this big block of ice that was delivered. I don't know if it was daily or weekly or what was going on, but you had this device that was insulated, big ice block, and it kept your food cold. And it was messy, and it was hard to work with, and you had to have the service, and you had all these things that were going on. And the refrigerator came along, and they started selling refrigerators, which was a complete no-brainer. So it was like, okay, this device, you plug it in, no more mess, and all we ask you to do is you're going to pay the same amount you're paying the ICE people monthly to come out and deliver. You pay that to us for the next 12 months, then you own it free and clear. There's no more mess. You'll get a freezer with it. You get a refrigerator, all these things. And it was like the way they pitched it, and I'm probably not doing a good job, but it was absolute no-brainer. All of us are like, now that we all have refrigerators, like, of course, why wouldn't you do that, right? And so they send their salespeople out, and they go out, and it's like 25% roughly were said yes, 75% said no. And this is on the equivalent of, let me just give you some money. This makes your life better. And, it's like so obvious. And there was this large portion that didn't. The early adopters are the one that took it on. Then as those came in, stories started spread. You got another 25%. And over the course of time, which took time, you had more adopters. And so every time I see something like AI or it seems like there's something new coming out all the time. You look at the way SpaceX is catching rockets, and they're retreating back out of the sky, which is unbelievable, right? Or you look at and you go back to, it's another Musk company, but they're out there and they've got satellites everywhere now, and that all of cell service and internet and all of that may change to just straight satellite. And right, there's all these things that are going on. Well, it comes down to, there's a couple pieces in there. There is willingness to change and excitement or belief that this is the future. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the reality that you're painting, which I absolutely agree with you, there's some version of that that's coming one way or another. And I don't know how long it'll take to full adoption of where all that is going. I don't know if human beings will reject bots because they're for some reason not up to the same caliber. But what I'm seeing, they are at the same caliber, and in a lot of cases better, as you're saying. And then the employer is no longer dealing with the human side. I see it as what you just painted makes complete logical sense. That's where it's going. And in California, like fast food, where they raised the price of fast food workers to whatever, $25 an hour or whatever they have to pay. As soon as they dropped that, there were several McDonald's and other places that went to full automation. And they're testing it. It's happening. So going to that and you go, well, these people need to change. It's pain or pleasure. It's going to get into, do they believe it? Are they an early adopter? Are they interested in the risk that is associated with it? Are they willing to work out the problems? Or they just want to put their head down and hold their breath and pray it doesn't hit any time in the next period of time until they have to sell? And so is your question, so all that was just confirming what you said, but is your question, how do you get them to change? Is your question, what is your question exactly around that?
I think this is for everybody who's listening, right? We're talking about how do we build a culture that is open to change, that is open to reflection. I mean, if that is a possibility, how critical is it that we address culture, belief, leadership, and these things right now versus sticking our feet in the ground and sitting on the fence and not taking action to intentionally design a culture that is ready for the kind of change that I believe is at our front door.
Okay, so your belief is it's at the front door, and there's others that just don't believe it. They're not bought into it. And the reality is when you go, so to create a cultural change, you need the top of the company to have the mindset of a cultural change. And I mean, you take HVAC and they're changing, government regulations have changed everything. They're changing all the fluid, all the things that are going on. Forgive me, I don't know all the right words. Yeah, the R32s, all this stuff. And I've sat in so many of those meetings, you'd think I'd know more. But the reality of what's going on is you've got some that until they are forced, they're not going to shift. Mm-hmm. And that's just, and I got to say, when we get into the trades, there are a large group of people that are hung on to not changing. They're just going to do it the way they are. That's what made them successful. That's why they're brilliant, because they're so bull-nosed. They're so put their face to the grindstone. I'm going to make it happen. Fight against this change that's happening. And that's the mindset. And that's awesome. And it made them successful. That is the exact same thing that's going to kill them if that dramatic change happens. And then they're going to be stuck and they're going to be frustrated and they're going to be behind the curve. And some of them are going to pull it out last minute and some aren't. But when you go, how do you create a cultural change? It just starts with the top being open to change and being curious. What's that?
I said curious.
Yeah,
in a way, it's like a curious mindset. People don't want to be told what to do. Like they don't. People do not want to be told, you have to do this. And so the curious mindset, the curiosity is, okay, so what could be possible? And I believe that when people get curious, it creates an openness. And it's not, this is happening to me. How does this align with my vision? When we know where we're going and why we started, as Eric was talking, I was thinking about Simon Sinek, start with your why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And when you know why you do it, then there's in that curious place of how do I level up? How do I get better? And it is top down. Then you can create a different style or openness. But if you're just, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to be bullnosed and put my head down, we're going to do it the same way it's always been done, they're going to have some clients, but they're not going to have the growth.
So leadership style connects to this. I guess that's what we're saying, right? Is how we lead. So if I go in and run a meeting and the majority of the meeting is me talking and directing people as to what to do, if that's the majority of the meetings that are happening in the business, we're going to see a business with lower creativity, lower ability to be flexible and resilient in the face of change of what you're talking about, right? And if we go in and we see the majority of the meetings are discussions and they're collaborative and it's democratic, that's the term. It's autocratic, democratic, or laissez-faire is how they teach it in business school, or they used to at my age, used to back in the day. But but it's this collaborative version of we go in and we go, here's the problem. How do we solve this thing? What are your ideas? And people are coming in with ideas and they feel, going back to that term, psychological safety, they feel safe enough to voice their opinion. Now it becomes a problem-solving exercise. It's almost fun. It's a little scary when you're talking about the level of change that you're talking about, but we come in and we go, okay, what are our options? What can we do? Where do we go? And we start thinking out of the box. No crazy idea. And we throw it up on the wall and those meetings aren't happening. So for those meetings to happen, for you to sit there and go, hey, AI's hitting, things are changing. And with your team, I know you do this. You throw it up on the wall and you go, what do we do? And you're there as a leader to guide and throw your input in and do all those things. But at the same time, if everybody's going, hey, I don't know, we haven't heard from Charlie in a while. What do you got? And Charlie's like, I got 10 ideas. I was just afraid to say them, and you start getting them out and you start doing that. You start to create this culture where we're rewarded. When I say rewarded, I don't mean money. I mean rewarded in a sense of when I share ideas and they're different than yours, that's a positive thing, and we're looking at it. It doesn't mean we're going to agree. It doesn't mean it's going to be this awesome conversation, but it's like, hey, I think we should go left. And you're like, I think we should go right. Well, let's talk about it. And what comes out of that, the spiral is amazing coming out of that, is that people feel heard. They feel empowered. They go home at night instead of going, gosh, I hate the way I have to do all these things. They're going home at night and go, gosh, there's got to be another way to solve that. And they're like researching on their own and they're having fun with it because they're like, we got to do this differently. And so very long-winded answer to this, but it's just, if we are creating a culture that it is a collaborative culture. Now, if emergency happens, somebody needs to take the lead and be directive. But the majority of leadership in most American companies was built out of World War II and the military mindset. Same thing with school system, is to where it's more autocratic. It is directive. The leader's job is to tell people what to do. And that system does not work in we need to pivot and change. It's got to be collaborative. It's got to be where people have voices and feel trusted, and it's got an environment around it. And it's not, let's be all worried about everybody's emotions. I know that's part of the culture today, but it's like, but it is one where we're inviting them in for conversation, and the conversation is safe, and I can voice my opinions. When that happens, all the things you're talking about get a lot easier.
It's changed me as a leader. It's changed all of our leaders, because now I'm seeing our leaders go in and start to have, instead of coming in with the hit list, they're going through the hit list quickly. Are you on track or off track? How are we doing on our to-dos? And leaving the majority of the meeting time for that discussion and solve process. But our next, I think, step that I know we need to evolve in is, now that I think we've really figured it out, we've got to modify. We've got to start at the predecessor, all the way back at the very beginning of the supply chain with recruiting and onboarding. That process has to change, where we've got a different version of pay to play. Like, what are the non-negotiables? You were asking what happens if someone completely disagrees. Like, what if we bring in a manager that's like, I don't think you should ask the team for their opinion. Like, I want to catch that early. I don't want to hire that person.
Yeah.
I don't want to hire them. So for you guys, what is your thought? If, let's say, a leader is coming to the table and saying, okay, this conversation I listened to, this podcast is jogging my thought process. I'm now consciously aware that I am probably closed and need to open up a little bit more and at least be more inquisitive and curious about what I should change. I'm going to need some leadership, training, coaching, a push, a kick in the ass, whatever it is that comes from more of an experiential style session than a book and a training. Now, what happens when the culture is there, but now they've got to onboard and they've got to bring in people that are really have the same methodology, so they don't throw a complete wrench in, a bike rolling 100 miles an hour down a big hill.
That was a great visual. I feel like I'm just talking nonstop, Mary. Do you want to take this, or you want me to run?
You're good.
So it's funny. So hiring, and I'd even go as far as promoting, right? So we hire somebody in, and then we're looking to, whether we're hiring an external manager, somebody in an elevated role, or bringing them into some type of a leadership role. I guess identifying prior. Leadership, a lot of times people associate that with, I lead people, I am put in a role that leads people. And the reality of a culture that has strong leadership is everybody's aware of their behaviors and how they influence. That's what leadership actually is, how we influence others. And so what you're talking about is, how do we hire people that influence and have a similar thought process and value system that we do within the organization? And the first part is, we have to identify what are those thought processes and value systems in the organization that really matter. So this is one, right? We want, when appropriate, to collaborate. We want to bring ideas in. And appropriate is when we have time, we have trust in place, and we need the answer to be more than the obvious, right? So meaning, okay, we need to go left here and everybody knows it. That's not a collaborative meeting. But your example of the whole world's falling apart, we need to solve this, let's throw it up on the wall, that's a collaborative meeting. But is first, it's identifying what are our values as an organization. I don't mean the 5 words you wrote on the wall, okay? And I get those are important, and every business should have them. I'm talking the living values. I'm talking the stuff that is like, it's the underneath, right? It's when somebody comes in here, what makes them successful? Well, what makes them successful in our business is that they're willing to share their ideas and they're willing to all those things. Okay, that's a value that shows up. It may be in your core values, it may not be. And I will say that one's resoundingly different than most organizations. Most of them is, you need to know how to play the political game right to make sure that I'm heard or seen in the right way, in the right lens. And every company deals with some levels of that. There's no company that's perfect.
Chess?
But what's that?
Playing chess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's, so you are a strong, confident, badass woman running an amazing business. And I come into your organization and I start working for it. If that is not super strong in the culture, the natural place to go stepping into the business, I'm not saying anything to Jen. I don't want to upset her. I don't want her to whatever. I get worried. I get anxiety, especially younger generations now. There's so much anxiety. All these things go on. And you're that larger than life personality. So they're like, I don't know how to deal with this. So, or the other side, you have somebody that has a big personality and the way they do it is through combat. They're just constantly, they're coming from this place. So they got to understand the concepts. So going back to your question, what do? We have to have our stuff in a row. What are we really looking for culturally? What do we want to set up? What are those pillars that we go, this is vital and important, and it can't be 100, it is 4 or 5. They may be what's written on the wall. They may not. So, and then how are we going to, through typically behavioral interview questions, how are we going to identify, and assessments and all those type of things, how are we going to identify whether this candidate shows up strong in these categories, right? And then you go internal, right? I'm going to promote somebody that's a direct implementer, and I'm going to move them into more of a management role. I think this may be one of the biggest mistakes in all organizations, is that instead of they'll take the salesperson that's great in sales and make them sales manager. Well, sales management is a completely different job and requires a different skill set. So they fit the culture, but are we evaluating them for the role, or are we just promoting them because they've been around for a while and they're good at this other role? So I don't know if that completely answers the question, but keep feeling like I'm going on these tangents.
So the other thing, know your vision, have the vision, know your values, those living values. And at the same time, when you hire and you onboard people, you get a honeymoon stage. And people, they want, they'll tell you all the stuff. And that honeymoon stage looks like they're the perfect fit. As soon as you see something that shows up that is incongruent with your values, immediately you bring awareness to it. it has to be consistent. The standard has to be the standard, because as soon as you let the standard slide and you don't address the behavior, now that's become your standard.
So well said. Yeah.
100% agree. So I have two things. Before I get to my next question, I want to point out, Mary, you and Eric, from the outside in, Eric's style connects with my tactical style. And that's the place where I can connect instantaneously, because I believe you think similar to me in that side, which is very, very logical, very tactical, bullet point list. You're mapping things out probably on the ceiling, and then you can get up in the morning and get on it while you sleep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the flip side, Mary, I don't think I've ever known anybody who can evoke emotion in humans because of your heart and your passion and your commitment and the way you show up. And I think that there is something that is magical between the two of you that I attempt to carry both with equal weight. Because if I don't, I wind up literally being just a bitch. And I think it's boss bitch that is that gets used. But Mary, from you, what I think the balance is critical, and what's gotten me to not just wear that label, but for the quiet ones, the younger ones, the 20-somethings to come to the meeting and communicate is because of me being more consciously aware of that I can go hard, but I've got to slow it down. And I've got to remind people that I freaking love you and I'm here to solve things and I've got your back and I want to support you and I trust you and I appreciate your opinion. And that, Mary, where does that come from? Right? Because I've had people ask me, was that training? Was it nature or nurture or what? Where? I feel like you can study tactics. But how does a business owner, one, learn the systems and the tactics to be able to implement, and then two, come with the heart and the passion and the care and concern where I can be firm, I can give direct feedback, I can be very direct, I can make sure that we're headed in this direction, but also wrap it with a really big fat hug and I love you so much that you do. You nailed it.
Well, we all have different skill sets. So I'm not the tactical. I am the heart. I'm the passion. I see a different lens and I have to work on the tactical side. And then Eric's opposite. Eric is like you, right? You just drive. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is where you hire people or you're in a relation or a partnership with people who have what you don't have. If we all hire the exact same person, there's a gap. And then giving grace for the different strengths. It's because I have a different mindset, and Eric's talking about, and you're talking about all the changes. The early adopters are like, all right, just get on board. And I'm thinking about some of these business owners who it's their blood, sweat, and tears. It's what they know. And when there's change, if it's so much change, now their identity is gone and they lose who they are. And so it's the awareness and the grace to be where you're at, to have people in your corner who have what you don't, and that we don't have to be everything to everyone. Yes, we get to learn and grow. We have to push ourselves, but
I'll tell you, Mary knows, when I came out of Bold, one of my biggest ahas, I was near tears about it, was I realized that while I have a collaborative style, I only had a collaborative style with the loud people within our company, the drivers. And that was one of my biggest ahas. So in my own business, I actually felt really bad about it. I was kind of hurt. I was like, what a bitch. I'm not listening to anybody who doesn't talk. This is a problem. So for us, what I did after Bold is created an open forum with different departments, and I host these with different departments. The leader, the loud one, they sit in the back, they go on mute, and they just listen. And we have a identify, discuss, and solve session where they are 100% free to do exactly that. I'll throw out a random, or just like I did, a wild, audacious, like, what if? That's crazy. 5 years from now, robots replace it, and whatever. Something crazy. And then ask everyone, what would you do? Why would you do that? What do you think? How would you accomplish it? If your manager wasn't listening and money wasn't a concern and there were no rules to this game, what would you do? And the ideas, I'll tell you, we've been a WordPress development shop for 20 years. All of our developers build websites in WordPress. And we had one 22-year-old on our team that stepped up and said, I don't know why we're still building WordPress sites. They're kind of dumb and pretty slow and a little insecure and hard to maintain. I mean, you can now build an intelligent, smart website that functions like an app since 70% of the users are now on a phone. Why are we focused on building these big, slow, dumb websites? And I can do it faster. And I was like, tell me about that. What is that? What do you mean?
That's awesome.
And there's a JavaScript and the PHP and the jQuery and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And that one little conversation with someone that I would not have had a conversation with before changed literally. And I have 100 of that exact same scenario just from being curious, inquisitive, open, giving people psychological safety to be able to challenge me, challenge their manager, challenge the people on their team for us to think different. I mean, you are 1000% spot on. And I think that
Eric's never going to be I'm going to make you cry. I'm not going to give you that big warm hug. I mean, he'll do it, but he knows that that's my gift.
Do it.
And he learns, right? It's like, whoa, pause. Right, pause. We're in a conflict. We're doing conflict classes right now. We do 6-week conflict effective classes. We're doing it with our team. And we're doing it with other people. And there was a big conflict. And he asked Kyla, so what could I have done better? And she freaking gave him the feedback.
Yeah.
And
that was good.
So it's as a leader, wherever we have the responsibility to learn and grow. We have the responsibility to ask ourselves the question, to look ourselves in the mirror. And if we don't have that gift, my God, you better be asking someone to help you,
I do it. So we do. We have an assessment that we really love. We use forever, called the Advanced Insights, and in that it measures what motivates a human being to perform. Yeah. Right. And one of them, there's 7 little buckets there, and one of them is altruism, and there's this inner drive of Mary to selflessly make the world better. Like that feeds her. It does all that. I'm the opposite. Okay. And it's not that I hate people. I'm not, it's not that, but I don't go into it going, I'll take the bullet for you. I go into it going, I'm going to show you how to dodge the bullet. It's up to you to do it. It's just a different mindset. So there's some things in there that I give to Mary. Mary, in my opinion, she's, granted, I married the woman and run a business with her and did all these things. So I think she's, unicorn of unicorns. But there's certain things like she has the ability to balance it. I care deeply for you. You better get your shit together. And like she brings both sides. And part of that's because she's been through shit in her life and she's tough as shit. But the other side is she is the ever loving, enduring, save the world. Let me feed the. We use this analogy when we're teaching conflict. It's like or teach an intermeshes. It's like you bring the horse to water, and the high altruist is like, here's the water. Drink the water, horse, and the horse won't drink. So they're injecting the horse. They're doing everything, right? Whatever I got to do, I'm going to save the horse. And I'm like, okay, we bring the horse to water. I'll bring it to water. I care enough to get it there. But the reality is the horse isn't going to drink. Let's get a new horse. It's
somebody said make him glue in our last class. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, but anyway.
To your question, and this is, so even the way Eric and I balance things out, there's times I'll go, yo, dude, have a little bit more compassion and empathy for that person. So I'm calling him on his stuff to create that awareness, to have him step back, and then he changes his approach. And then there's times when he'll look at me and goes, what's our system? And he challenges me because I'm the one that's constantly changing. But as our team grows, we have to have this consistency. So having people in your corner that will give you feedback. And as a leader, we have to listen instead of being so stuck and stubborn.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks that I'm naturally more like Eric. I'm wearing an awesome cloak because I am technically, if you look at my assessments I've done with you, I fall really high on the altruist side, same as Mary. And I've struggled with giving direct feedback. I've struggled with holding my ground regardless of what other people think. Those are all of the things that are similar, Eric, to your personality style. Those have been studied, trained, practiced. I've surrounded myself with people who will tell me the truth no matter what I feel like. And my mother's is definitely the epitome of that. You know her well.
You know her.
Right.
But for anybody that thinks that you've got to have that, like if you're more on the caring side or the nurturing side, I should say, I'm not saying you don't care.
Well, sometimes
feedback and whatnot. I will tell you the beauty of that. I'm a speaker, but I'm also the one that hides in the back of the room at every party. I do not go out. I do not feel comfortable in a party environment. At events, you'll see I'm quiet until somebody mics me up and gives me the stage and tells me to go to work. People think I'm a different human than I actually am, which is interesting. But when I think this is a combination between both of what you guys said, when you are inquisitive and you are open and you understand I am consciously unaware of what I don't know. I'm aware that I don't love the results I'm getting right now. I don't love historically what's happened. I don't love where we're headed. And I'm going to be accountable and I'm going to own that I'm the driver in the trajectory in the future and I need to fix me first. And then you hire the right people. If they're not in your friend list, family list, if they haven't been where you haven't seen, if they don't have the training, the experience, I mean, you guys have thousands of case scenarios where you've seen this work and the results that it produces, which creates a level of confidence that's amazing. That's technically the only reason I'm as confident as I am is because I have thousands of scenarios that I've taken companies through with all these things. And I know it's a fact, and that's causing me to be direct. That's causing me to be bold. I am not naturally that way. But if I've seen the same thing 5,000 times, you better bet I'm not holding my tongue. I'm not going to be a nerd. I'm going to say this is a fact. I've seen it before. So, awesome. I mean, I think that I think there's a lot of people that are concerned with that they're not born naturally with either that tactical processing skill or the nurture skill. Doesn't matter. Because as long as you come to the table and you surround yourself with people and put yourself in environments where you're uncomfortable and with people that are going to push you out of your comfort zone, I mean, this is where to start. I don't have anything I would recommend other than if you have not been to Bold, sign up for freaking Bold right now. Sign up for freaking Bold right now.
I got one. Leave me.
Get out of here.
I got Forge too. We got to get that to you.
I know.
Working on that one. Actually, that's not Forge. That's an older one.
Yes, I need that. Cool. So, yeah.
Well, and even what you said is that even if we're not naturally wired that way, and we were talking about this, the more we push ourselves, and that's where you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. In anything, in any change, when your heart's pounding and your palms are sweating, you want to feel like you want to throw up a little bit, that's where you take action. And it's okay. The more you do that, the more you push yourself, the better, like the more confident you become. And it gets a little easier each time to where it's the 10,000 hours and all of a sudden you've mastered it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I fully just heard Eminem in my head.
Look yourself.
I was looking at my whole head, my body was bobbing. Mary was about to start rapping.
I just think that this is probably a bigger conversation than we have time for, but the concept of what leadership is in America is this big, brash, forceful, directive human. And the reality is we all lead, we all influence, no matter what our personality is, no matter where we're coming from. And sometimes it's effective and sometimes not. Sometimes being big and bold and loud and systematic and what all is highly effective. And then there's other times where it would be much more effective to take a different approach. And are we somebody who's willing to go, my one approach doesn't handle my 10,000 situations? Or am I going, well, my one approach is the way it is and all of you have to change and deal with it? And literally that's just the switch. The switch is, I need to learn other approaches. And if I'm not willing to do that, expect to be in a business that's going to work while everything's going the way it is. However, it's not going to work when you need to pivot, when you need to change, when you need a team that's creative, when you don't want to go home with the headaches of having to solve every problem, because the business gotten too big or whatever it is. You're not going to have it because the team is not going to be there behind you. You're going to have a bunch of people that are good at taking direction and doing what they're told and not thinking. The role of a manager is not to get people to do things. The role of a manager is to get people to think so that the things that are done get the business on the objectives that we need. So,
and if you don't like the results that you're getting as that leader, look in the mirror. One of the things that Eric and I always say is, what did we do to create that? What did I do to create that? Everything rises and falls on leadership. So if you're looking, it's lead your ship. If you are not getting the results you want, it starts with you because they're telling you where the gap is. They're showing you where the gap is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that shit.
I love it.
I can't be more direct than that one. On that. All right. So for anybody, I love you guys so much and thank you. I know your time is very good. I appreciate it. It's an important message for a lot of people during a very important time. For anybody that's interested in getting enrolled, pack your bags. It's 3 freaking days of your life. It'll change the trajectory of everything.
No.
Oh, we have amazing. You guys can't see our studio crew in the back. Miss Krista and Jasmine, they're and boom, it happens.
Like poof, it's magic.
No.
Go to Driven Leadership.
Thanks for the shout out. And just want to echo your team that you send through and the quality that you're doing and what you guys are putting together and how you're pivoting and holy shit, how you've launched as a company and what you've done. It's cool to be associated with somebody like you and what you're doing. So just thanks for the time and thanks for the spot.
Yeah, you do the work. You're the student. You're willing to be that student. And it's so inspiring to watch the growth within you, within CI Web Group, within your teams. And it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We're honored.
Big hugs. Thanks, everybody,
right back at you.
For joining today. I hope to see you on the next one. We appreciate it. Love you guys so much. I can't wait to see you and give you a big hug.
Right back at you.
Right back at you.
Everyone.